sacrifices and the parable of the 10 virgins. And these may sound to be totally different issues, but they may not be. So let's kind of walk this through. When we return to, as we go back to Exodus, at some point in time we're going to start sacrifices again. Now, that's a hard thing to hear from those who are coming out of churchianity, but there's no question we will start sacrifices again. And in fact, when the Messiah comes back, he's going to be doing sacrifices. And if you really want to flip people out, show them in Ezekiel 45 and 46, where it's dealing with things with him. He's actually even going to do a sin sacrifice. I don't want to get into that. That's not important for this video. But the issue is we will be doing sacrifices again. And so one of the factors there is we need to know how to do these. Now, we get the instructions in Leviticus 1 and 2 on how to do the sacrifices. We have, from the animal, from the flock or the herd, we lay our hands on it. Again, we're going to be bringing it to the altar. So I don't know that we will be doing this particular sacrifice until we actually get back into the kingdom itself. But in the event that we do it during the Exodus, we need to know how to do that. So again, we bring it there. Again, we'd have to have an altar, which is a factor. We are to lay our hands on it, kill the animal, skin the animal, cut it in portions, and the Levites take the blood up to the altar, and then they take the animal up and roast the animal. And of course we have to clean it too. We have to clean out the innards, and as well as we have to clean, I believe it's the hindquarters, the legs and things. So we clean it, make sure it is clean before we offer it. That's a secondary thing. I really didn't need to go there, but we need to know how to do that, but it's not incredibly difficult. The second one, though, is Leviticus 2, and that is a grain offering. In the event that he wants us to start those sacrifices early, and if we are given something where we can do an altar, I think we have almost everything available, and I think we can start tying things in to the wise virgins and who those might be. Because the wise virgins took oil with them. So when you do a bread, basically a flour offering, one, it is not a manna offering. It is not in the natural form. It is flour, finest flour, which means we should have, number one, a grain mill or a mortar and pestle, and then we should have a flour sifter. And the reason for that is because we are sifting out the finest flour. The finest flour can go to the offering. So you have to have these ingredients, or these machines. If it's a machine, again, you can do it with a stick and something with the for the mortar and pestle, and do it totally labor intensive. And all these things are fine. These things are all acceptable. But we sift that through for the flour, and the finest we can make into a bread loaf. Now, the issue comes in what type of bread loaf. And it depends on how we cook it. There are 3 different methods of cooking it. They are all described in Leviticus 2. The first one we have is we can cook it if we bake it in the oven. Are we going to have ovens during the Exodus? Some of us will, at least originally. Are we going to? Most likely not, but who knows. If we have an oven, we are told how to handle it. And I'm the type of person that likes pizza, so I think about pizza. So if you do like a Chicago pizza, which I'm not a fan of, which is a thick pizza, then the oil gets mixed in with the flour. If, however, you do a New York style crust, a thin crust, like what people would think of like a pita or a tortilla, then the flour is rubbed on top of it. Now that's for baked in an oven. You have 2 other methods of doing it. One would be on a griddle, and the other would be in a frying pan. So if you do it and so again, let's go back to Leviticus 2 to find these instructions. And in verse 4 we have the oven. Okay, and it says, if it's thicker, you add the olive oil in it, and if thinner loaves, you brush the olive oil on it. Verse 5, if it's on the griddle, it's to be made of the finest flour mixed with oil. So you mix that with oil, okay? And So if it's on the griddle, you mix the oil in, okay, and crumble it, and then pour olive oil on top of it, and that's the grain offering if it's on the griddle. And then verse 7 says if it's cooked in a pan, okay, then it is to be made with the finest flour and some olive oil, okay. So that's how we do it. Now on top of that, so when we think of the wise virgins who brought the oil, certainly I think you should be having, if you're going, some olive oil with you. Because we don't know if those sacrifices would start when we go, basically when we get off of, if you're going on a plane or whether you're going by boat, they may start very soon thereafter, so you need to have some olive oil with you. Here's one that I'm sure you have not thought of: frankincense, because on each of these things you pour just a little bit of frankincense on it. So we need to have a little bit of frankincense with it. It's not that expensive. We can get it like on eBay or Amazon. It's cheap. It's no big problem. And of course the other factor is salt, because all the salt offerings have to have salt on them. Now I'm not saying that when we get off the plane, if we're going to Mount Sinai, that these sacrifices will start then, but they could, and that's a real factor, is the fact that they can. So if they could start, should we not have the things that we need to do that? Now we don't have to worry about the animal. He'll provide the animal. We don't have to worry about the I wouldn't say flour, but we don't have to worry about the wheat or anything like that, because he's going to provide the manna. Now we have to do some work on it, so we'll have to have something to convert that manna into flour, and sift it so we have the finest flour for an offering. Those things are not problematic. Anybody can get that and take it with them. That's a simple thing. Again, it's not an expensive thing to do. Now, if you're using a big grain mill that, $300, yeah, those things are heavy. Those things are more problematic. But again, we can take care of it. It's not going to be that big a problem. Like, obviously, you'd have to have something to cook it on. So then I would think a frying pan or something. And again, not that problematic. Everybody's got one already in their kitchen, so take it with you. Take one with you. No big problem. Now here's where it gets a little fun, because when it talks about the parable of the 10 virgins, we have that in Matthew 25. Okay? And they were going out to meet the bridegroom, but it doesn't say that they were the ones getting married. It just says that they were 10 virgins who took out their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. And the wise ones took the oil with them. So again, the oil they would have been using would have been olive oil. But would it also not be frankincense? Would it not be salt as well? This is a parable, so you need to kind of work that through. So there are some things we should be taking. Just like those who are going on the Exodus need to be prepared for certain things that they would have. Something to convert the manna into a flour. That's something we need. A tent, that's something we need. These little things we're responsible for. He's taking care of the water. He's taking care of the manna. If there is an offering of an animal, he'll provide the animal. So again, if he's going to provide the animal, then I hope obviously somebody has a knife. No problem. And then you would say, well, wait a minute, what about the flour? Or, to at least light a fire. If it's on the altar, he'll deal with the fire. But if it's in our own things, if we're cooking the flour, we should probably have some type of method to light a fire. Again, not that problematic of an issue. Box of matches doesn't weigh anything. You can put it in your pocket. You're golden. You're not going to need a license. You're not going to need a wallet with you. So, we'll be okay. We can take things. And that brings us into the other issue, and that is, do we also see this in Revelation? When they're talking about the 10 virgins, are they talking about those in the 144,000? Because the 144,000 are virgins. Should the wise among the 144,000 also have this ready? Okay? And so have your oil, have the salt, have the frankincense ready to go. And again, it's not hard to prepare. It takes 10 minutes on eBay, no more than $20, and you're golden. You know, anybody can run to the grocery store and get a thing of olive oil if you don't already have it in your kitchen. Most likely you've got it in your kitchen. Again, I would think we would want to take a thing of wine with us, but if you can do that, great. And again, that's not an expensive thing to take, so have it if you got it. It's just a different way of looking at it. But again, we don't know when it'll start. It could wait very much. It could wait until we get to the kingdom and we build the fourth temple. But we don't know. And we're told from Jeremiah that the Ark of the Covenant is not going to be dealt with, or not that it's not going to be dealt with, but we won't remember it anymore because we're going to have the Messiah there. That doesn't mean the Ark won't be there. It may very, very well be hidden, and has been hidden for quite some time at Mount Sinai. This we just don't know. I doubt we're going to make another Ark of the Covenant because, again, it has manna in there from the first Exodus. It has the staff of Aaron that has been budding from the almonds. So there are things that are in it that if we made a new one, we wouldn't have. So, and of course, obviously, the Ten Commandments. So, you know, I would imagine that that particular item is going to be available for us. But it doesn't say I can't add, I can't subtract. It is just my belief that it probably will be available for us and provided for us. But again, I don't know that to be a fact. It's just possible. So again, just something to think about. There may be more things you may want to put in your bug-out bag. You know, putting in the olive oil, putting in some frankincense, putting in a thing of salt. I mean, salt's the cheapest thing in the world we can get. And no matter how poor you are, you can find a nickel, and that's about how much it costs to get some salt. I mean, it's the cheapest thing out there. So there's no excuse not to have salt, at least from a monetary standpoint.